You. Boy, oh boy, that certainly ended as soon as Trump got elected and started pounding on Canada. Oops, that was the end of them. And that reminds me, this is really off the wall here, but Detroit, of course, is right across there, and Windsor is across the other side of the Detroit River. And there's a radio station there. I guess it's still there, CKLW. And a long, long time ago, they used to have this really gonzo news guy, and I'll never forget. It's sort of gross, but this was a newscast that went out on, they could say stuff, I guess, on Canadian TV that we couldn't. But anyway, this guy said it was bang, bang, bang in the Motor City overnight, 2 rapes and a murder. Isn't that awful? I mean, that's pretty terrible, but it was memorable. That was how they used to do news in Canada, CKLW. But like I say, I don't even know if they're still there. Some of that stuff is gone. But what a thing to remember. You just remember the stuff.
I was going to ask you, though, because you were like Sarah Palin. I mean, basically, you could see Canada.
See Canada from my window.
You could see Canada like she could see Russia. So what is
right.
it like living that close to Canadians? Is it very big difference in culture?
Never paid much attention to them. Yeah. I really never did. They were just sort of there. They were very quiet.
They're waking up.
Dull people.
They're starting to wake up.
Maybe now they are, but I mean, they were just sort of dull. They were there, and I never had occasion to go to Windsor. I did once go through there on my way to Stratford, Ontario. There's a
not Stratford-on-Avon.
No, but they have a Shakespearean theater.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably
Shakespearean festival. I went there, and it was creepy. I didn't go over the bridge. I never had the Ambassador Bridge. I went down the tunnel, and the tunnel was really creepy because the tiles were sweating. I think, oh no, they're going to break through. But anyway, but it was really strange that because you go to the when you see at an American place where you see people coming in, you see some activity, right? Well, the Canadians just sort of appeared, and they were there. They just sort of floated into the theater, and it's a small town. A lot of people open up their houses for, bed and breakfast stuff. And then when it was over, they all just sort of disappeared out of the theater. There was no traffic. There was no nothing.
You didn't know they were there, huh?
No.
They picked their own trash up and everything.
They wouldn't make trash, I don't think.
Yeah, they don't even know what trash is. They're using wooden everything.
They were different in that regard.
All the population is so concentrated along the United States border, along the St. Lawrence and the Great Lakes. I mean, there's really no one living anywhere else. And quite frankly, most of the country is I think it's basically volcanic rock underneath the beautiful, lush foliage. You really can't farm it because the rock, the underground, but it makes lots of minerals.
All that stuff out to the west, so look at all that, all that land
But that's
there.
why nobody lives there. You can't really do anything on it other than mine minerals and hunt elk.
You can go to Calgary, Alberta for the stampede.
There you go. Hey, I did a little research for you this morning. Do you know how many moose live in Canada?
Oh, thousands.
1 million.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, but
and they just wander.
We have millions upon millions of elk here in this country, but they only have 72,000 elk, but they have 1 million moose. And I just found that to be interesting that you have so many more moose than you do elk. And I actually was having a debate with somebody on the text line during our earlier show. I was like, I really thought that there were probably more moose and elk than people in Canada.
That would
have been my guess.
Maybe.
But there's not, apparently. No. It's not as wildlife as you think. We have more wildlife in the northwestern states.
Than Canada, you have to go way up into the, whatever they call that, up in there, up there, up north.
Up around the Arctic.
Way up north, what?
Hudson Bay, where the beavers are.
What are you saying there?
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
I did some great research on Nova Scotia the other day. A lot of the Cajun, most all of the Acadians that came over from the Old World when they left, the French, they moved to Nova Scotia. And that was where the Cajuns, the Acadians, originally settled in North America. Well, the people didn't like them up there for some reason because their religion, and they weren't fitting in like everybody else was. So basically the English, at the point they took over the area, deported them. And so many moved here, and they settled in the southern part of Louisiana where they made a home, a life, and their culture being so unique and preserved. That's something that we're losing day by day, is that amazing Cajun culture and heritage that is from France, the Acadian region. Very unbelievable. And then there is also Spanish colonists that came to the United States 600, 500 some years ago, the Canarios. And the King of the King of Spain back 20 years ago, they commissioned a study to come here and actually transcribe and record the correct way to speak Castilian Spanish.
Castilian, you lisp.
With the lisp.
When you go, I have a friend who went to
Canarios
who went to
living,
Spain, and they were going to go to Barcelona, and I said, don't be surprised if you run into people. Barcelona, if you run into people who lisp, because the king did it years ago, and they thought that was the right way to talk. They don't have a natural lisp.
Cazador was the king.
Cazador?
Yeah. Well, the hunter, he was known as the hunter. King Carlos, I believe. Was it Juan Carlos or Carlos? I can't. It's been a while, but he was known as a hunter. And the cazador, but he had that lisp, and he's like, "Man, I don't like everybody making fun of me." He said, "You got to do it now."
They were honoring him. They were honoring him supposedly.
Well, he thought they were making fun,
but they were honoring him, which is pretty amazing. Well, I have to get into what I want to get. Oh, there are some people in our area in Hinds County who are very unhappy. Those who have anything to do with the jail. And I feel for the sheriff because, he's in the middle of he doesn't own the jail, the existing one. No, the county owns that stuff. So here we're spending gazillions of dollars building a lovely new jail and having to prop this thing up, right? And just keep it, intact until they can get out of there. Well, despite objections from the county, federal officials are scheduled to get their first view of the Raymond County Detention Center in years. That would be the existing one that's falling apart. According to court records, there's a monitoring team representing the federal receiver that was put in charge is expected to visit this facility today. It comes less than a week after a detainee was found dead there. Well, that happens. They die in jail. We don't know that it's murder. Don't think so. But anyway, it comes over objections from the county, which filed an objection with District Judge Carlton Reeves on Saturday. And Reeves overruled, saying this visit will be the first truly independent on-site assessment conducted at the facility in years. And he goes on to say the county's latest objection insinuates at a general level that it will refuse to pay the costs of the site visit. As the last court's order explained, however, the county's alternative proposals, like a new monitoring team, would cost even more money and further delay constitutional compliance. In context, then, a last-minute refusal to pay is not well taken. Okay, well, in March, the county filed a motion to reject the reinstatement of the previous monitor, Elizabeth Simpson, and her subject matter experts to be removed and replaced with a new monitor. The county also questioned why a monitor is needed at all in light of the appointment of a receiver, saying it would create an additional layer of government bureaucracy. The county, listen to this, the county has already paid the monitor and her team of consultants a total exceeding $1.2 million. $1.2 million to date. The county must now pay the receiver $16,000 a month. Not surprisingly, the government does not attempt to reconcile its white-knuckle grip on bringing the monitor and her consultants back into the center at the county's expense with the simple fact that the county's financial resources would be put to a better use. Well, monitors were put back in place in 2016 to ensure that the county brought the jail into compliance with the federal court consent decree. And this goes on and on. In 22, after years of failing to bring the jail into compliance, Reeves, the judge, put the jail in federal receivership. And Simpson filed her last report that same year. Well, it goes on and on. Anyway, this goes forever. Both the government and the county have filed proposals of work for the receiver. The county argues whether a receiver is still needed, saying the decision to appoint one was made using old evidence. Reeves said the findings from Tuesday's visit will be added to the agenda of the next hearing set in this thing. Well, the point is, look, we know that the place is pretty raggedy. It was raggedy apparently from day one. And we know that there's a new jail being built. It's not going to be like that at all. It's going to be, everything's going to be, and we've talked with the sheriff. He's been on the show. Tight, locked down, right? We even showed, we showed some pictures of the site, but it's going to be a whole different ball game. And they have to spend all this money on this old rickety jail, which I realize you got to do something to secure the prisoners. Yeah, you got to do that. You have to do that. You have to make sure. You have to make sure that, for instance, I heard of a guy during one of the riots in years past who went up into the ceiling because they had removable things in the ceiling, tiles in the ceiling, went up there and got away from the rioting. And some other people were up in there too. Well, you got to have, first of all, you got to not have riots, but then you can't have stuff like that. Anyway, so
I have a suggestion that may, again, and we can cover this. The moment we decide to quit putting nonviolent criminals in the same place as rapists and murderers and all that would be a good idea. And I think you would see a lot of change in how the prison systems actually function.
Well, can't they go in different pods?
I mean, but
you
don't.
You get different pods. Somebody's to put them in there.
Some they do, and many they are just thrown out there. And again, I think you would probably get a better outcome if we were a little more conscientious of how we did this.
Well, I wonder if they're going to do something like that in the new jail. Because, if you have pods, then you can move people around. And if you have good guards, you can keep them in their pods.
Exactly.
Anyway, we'll come back and we'll talk some more. Talk about what happened at Jim Hill yesterday. That was pretty awful. And I know that the principal is anguished over that one. And then the whole business about a former deputy getting robbed. That's disgusting. Stay with us here on Mary Wieden You. Sally was the name of my horse.
Sally.
From the song Mustang Sally.
Oh, really?
Yes, because my Mustang Sally would throw herself down on the ground if there was something she didn't want to do.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know they did that.
Sally can do anything she wanted to. She was a feisty mare. Lesson learned: don't buy a mare. My next horse is going to be a gelding, a gentle grade. That means a mud horse. Grade gelding, no stuff like that. But anyway. I learned something that I did not know this about sugar highs. So yesterday I had to go pay a lot of money to get a new car tag, right? And so, you pay a lot of money. And you go over to, I was on Rankin County, so I went to the one on Lakeland. And, hey, does anybody answer that question yet? What turns 100 today? So I went to the place and I paid my money. And so I thought, well, good. And I've done my good deed for the day and my good deed for my county. Now I'm going to go treat myself on an empty stomach. So I went into the bakery right next to the place, the tax place. Oh, that place. If you've ever been in there, it's called Sugar Magnolia. Oh, yeah. And one of the big things you see right away is this huge cabinet full of truffles. Well, no, I didn't want truffles. I said, well, how about something like donuts or something? So I went around the corner, and here were these beautiful chess pieces with chocolate chips in them, chocolate chip chess, and pretty good sized pieces. I guess they were like 3 inches by 3 inches, and maybe not quite a full inch tall. So I got one of those, and then down below there was a chocolate chip brownie, and it was also big. So I'll have one of those too. So I took them home, and I thought, well, I'll eat the chess one for breakfast, and I'll save the chocolate one for dessert for dinner. Well, I ate both of them. I just couldn't stop myself. I've been trying not to eat so much sugar, but anyway, so I ate them both, and boy, I felt yesterday all day long just ugh. I mean, mentally I was awake, and I did do some work, but physically I just couldn't do anything. Couldn't take the dog for a walk or anything. I was just ugh.
Oh man, sugar will wear you out.
I've never had so much sugar, and I guess I've been trying not to eat so much sugar anyway. Because
I'll definitely get I'll crash a bit. I'm not a huge sugar person. I drink a good bit in my coffee in the mornings, and then I'm kind of through the day. I try to avoid it for the rest of the day, and I will definitely feel about lunchtime that sugar wear off. You're like, what's happened to me?
The sugar or the caffeine?
Probably for me, the sugar. Caffeine. I could drink black coffee all day, all night, and I could pass out in 2 minutes. Doesn't have any, but the sugar part does have a lot of impact on me. And then
have you ever had that? I mean, overdose. I mean, I just overdid it. I didn't know that. I thought sugar made you feel like woo.
Yeah, we would mainline a lot of stuff like that. And as an athlete, back in the day, Snickers and all that, they'd give you that. You weren't getting fruit and all. You're getting more sweets to get you ready to go.
That's right.
And yeah, you would be exhausted.
But Snickers bars are going to overload you.
But if you eat 5 of them,
would overload you.
5 of them and a few Gatorades and all that sugar, it definitely gets you jacked up. But you're going to get. To me, I always find that crashing effect to be I need a nap, buddy.
Well,
I can't like walk away from it.
I just felt guilty that I couldn't take the dog for a walk or anything.
Does the dog run off from you again?
No.
She hasn't gone gallivanting and exploring?
No, but every time she goes outside, I'm just, I've always been a very responsible dog owner, but every now and then, this is the second grand running off. She had a run off a couple of years ago where I have an electric fence that has recently been busted by some workers, and I haven't gotten any word about getting it fixed by them or anything like that. But anyway, a couple of years ago, she ran off, and a neighbor found her. A neighbor went down in her golf cart, found her down at the end of the street with a piece of pizza in her mouth. She went to a construction site, and here's Whitey with this piece of pizza, and the lady goes, Heidi, Heidi. Heidi ran off, and then but the lady waited. It was cool that she did. And then here comes Heidi a couple minutes later with the pizza gone. Then she got in the golf cart and came home. I mean, so that was then. And, you turn your head for 2 seconds. Honest to God, it's true. So Easter Sunday, I turned my head for about 10 seconds. I wanted to see what they were going to do on the Americas for the second hours. That's what I wanted to know about, because they were going to do a thing on. That's been a fabulous series of shows. How it took them. They did it for 5 years. Now, how they track a lizard or something is beyond me. But anyway, and then went outside looking for old Heidi, and she wasn't there. And I was up and down the street, blowing her whistle and calling her name. And well, actually, it turns out, because I saw the guy again who found her, she's walking up the street. He said she couldn't have been more than about 4 houses away.
She was just ignoring you.
Exactly. Somebody whose others' voices that she respects more than mine do better than I do with her.
Well, I had a lab like that. He used to love testing me, and it was his little way of showing affection. And I'd get so upset with him because he'd wander off, but he would wait till I turned my head.
They know.
And then he never had his eyes off of me, always waiting for me to turn around and do something. And immediately he would he wouldn't run. He just sidled off quietly. And a minute later, you turn around and he was right here, and he's gone. He's gone. And I'd holler and whistle and blow a bullhorn and get everything out you could, ride around looking for him. Finally, you just give up. And then guess what? Here he is. He's like, "Hey, Dad, what's up?"
Good,
I heard all that, Dad, but I didn't
want to be bothered.
Didn't want to come back.
Isn't that terrible? Oh, one time, even before the pizza incident, a lady who I'd not met came to my door, and she said, "I think this is your dog. I've seen her. I've seen you with her." Well, it's a very wonderful lady who happens to be a pet sitter, turns out. And Heidi just strolled. It's about 3 doors away on the other side of the street. Honestly, it's you feel like such a stupid, irresponsible owner when that happens.
You do, but I had to always forgive myself too and realize that dog is a smart thing. Dog is smart.
They're so smart. They're so smart. If I'm doing things like if I'm outside doing something where I can't keep my eyes on her constantly, then I have to put her in the house. Say, "Oh, you got to go in the house now. You have to go in the house. I'm going to do this." And then when I've done that thing, then I'll bring her back out. I tell her not to eat. And not to eat, and of course she does. And then she'll barf. Find a weed this big, comes out with a barf.
They love that. They love it. I don't know what it is about that. It's just it's like them eating candy or something. They think they're getting away with something.
Yeah, they really.
They're looking at you while they're eating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's doing that yesterday.
Like, why are you eating?
I told you not to eat outside.
And then the moment that you catch them, they look at you like they ate a mouse.
We have to go. Heidi and I have to go to the vet today. She's got to have a monthly checkup, and I don't want them, doing a blood test and saying, "Well, what's this weed doing in here?" Or "What is this?" Oh, black dirt. This is another thing. She's really getting into black dirt.
Sniffing it too, probably.
Well, I think what's happening with her is because she's on this kidney diet. The food is rather bland, and actually a good amount of salt would make it taste better. But it's bland food, and she wants tasty things, and she's looking for tasty things. That knows. She's been a ground pounder anyway because she's a Jack Russell, but now she's excessively ground pounding. A little stone or something, she'll pick that up. But maybe that tastes good. Anything. Just give me anything. A piece of wood. She got a piece of wood out with the dirt yesterday. So anyway, Heidi. Well, I'm so grateful that she's doing that. Though I'm glad that she's got the temperament, to do that, because she has a serious disease, and but it's not getting her down. Pretty much, she's
got to keep rolling.
Oh, she does. Well, let me talk about this Jim Hill business. This was a terrible situation. I'm sure a lot of you might have seen this on the local websites, that the Jim Hill is on lockdown because of an incident. And that's what they call it, an incident. And there might have been another word in there, and I thought, oh, boy, what's going on there? Well, as it ends up, they were on lockdown because they called it an external threat. Everybody was safe, teachers were safe, and the action happened actually outside. What happened was, apparently a couple guys got into a fight or an argument or whatever, and then they went outside and they were shooting at each other outside is what was going on there. But, bullet casings, I guess they found them all over outside, and then the guys left. And I don't yet know if they caught whoever these people were. Said Chief Wade, "We have youth in our community who do not respect authority. They do not know how to deal with conflict, and they resort to gunfire, weapons to resolve this conflict. Now we've created a mass panic and chaos right here at Jim Hill High School." A lot of concerned parents went there, and family members went to find out what the heck, Said one person, 2 kids got into an argument. They were shooting. I don't know that somebody was shooting, and then they left. It's very frightening. We love our kids. They're all we've got. Just like that. Parents are just in a wreck. So about 1:30 in the afternoon, then JPS sent out a statement that said that the lockdown had been lifted. Everybody is safe, and the school will continue for the remainder of the day. JPS, Capitol Police, and Jackson Police are continuing with their investigations. U.S. Marshals even were dispatched to the school. And parents were notified about this, too, at the time that it happened. And they say details will be provided once they're open. Well, the principal of the school is a man named Bobby Brown, and I had occasion to meet him some years ago. And I find him to be, he was just so engaging. He was so into school and so into the kids. And it was his theory that at the beginning of every year, whether it was going into, it was really more than anything going into high school, that parents and kids understand what school is all about. And he was going to be scheduling meetings with them. And I thought, well, what a cool way to do stuff. So you don't have any question about what your kid is going to be going through and what school is like and so on. And I presume that he still does that every year. But he's all about the kids, what they're learning and how their parents should be involved with them and all that kind of stuff. And I would imagine that Principal Bobby Brown was just devastated by this. He it's a big enough job anyway, but to have something like this happen, he's got to be probably angry and devastated and sad at the same time. That's hard to see your school, go through something like this. And thank goodness nobody was hurt. It could certainly have turned out to be absolutely horrible, worse than it was. But thank goodness that was what had happened. Isn't that something? So, by the way, we're at 888-808-8637 if you want to join us. We are texting at 601-879-4395, and you can watch us, supertalk.fm/Mary. By the way, Friday is Darden North, the doctor turned author. He's coming on the show. We haven't had him in a while. He's finished another book. I just think that's so intriguing I love to be a writer to begin with, but, to be, a successful doctor and then you go and write books on top of that. That's pretty fascinating.
I don't see how you find the time being a doctor and an author. Goodness gracious.
No, yes. And you can't confuse the two, that's for sure. And he doesn't write medical books.
That's what I'm saying. I can imagine if you're just doing doctor work, but that's not.
No, he's not. He's doing these other fascinating things. So anyway, he'll be on the show this coming Friday. By the way, next Tuesday, like I said, we've got Kenny G, spelled G-E-E, by the way. It's a name, not just a letter, who's running as a Republican in the Jackson mayoral. Or actually, the proper pronunciation is mayoral. Did you know that? It's not mayoral.
Mayoral?
It's not mayoral. It's not fentanyl either. It's fentanyl. And it's mayoral race.
Well, we got a good lesson this morning on El Salvador.
El Salvador? Who says that?
Well, that's how they say it.
They say
you
El
put
Salvador.
the accent at the end.
At the end, El Salvador?
That's right.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. El Salvador. I have no idea about
We
that.
have some smart listeners.
Oh, really?
They make sure we understand when we mess up that we need to correct it. Yeah.
By the way, folks, you see, I don't have the big headsets. Don't have the headset on because it's right here. Oh, how can you hear anything? Because I have this in my ear, and Lance has lent me this thing.
Moving her up to
but the thing of it is,
stuff.
though, it doesn't have any cool sound to it. It's very empty sounding.
It is what it is.
Yeah, but you buy them at a gas station.
Those are gas stations. You can get better ones. Yeah.
This is so funny.
Like $9 ones.
Ooh, these aren't $9.
Yeah, that's maybe $9.
Well, without Radio Shack, we don't have any place to go. I mean, you can go online. Nothing beats going into the old Radio Shack and looking at the newest in what is it he used to buy all the time? Scanners. Yeah, scanners. One time I had a house full of scanners, police scanners, because you got to keep up with that.
You could build a computer from the stuff you could get at Radio Shack. You mean you could build your own computer?
I suppose.
You could. I mean, people did it all the time. They'd go in there and just buy up a bunch of components and glue it all together, and they were a lot smarter than I am, but you can't do that much anymore. I mean, Radio Shack was kind of a hidden little gem there for a long time.
Yeah, it really was. And by the way, did you know, in terms of pizza, you might think that there's a lot of Hungry Howies around. You know what? There's only one in the state of Mississippi.
I know where it is.
I do too. I went there.
Eaten it a few times.
I went there. I went there Sunday because there used to be one by the Kroger store by me, and it's been closed for about a year. And I thought I just can't stand it. So I went over there and I found out the only one there on Old Canton Road, folks. Y'all know that. It's the only one in Mississippi. I thought we had a bunch of them. What's economy? I guess I don't know. But anyway, it was a fine pizza too, by the way. Okay, so we'll be back for our final segment. I do want to tell you about Brad Sullivan. This was a cruel thing. Stay with us. You have to poke hard to get something way down in my ear.
Those are the new. I need to get you ones with the clips. I
like to push them way down.
Yeah.
The
clips work a little better because they actually do kind of shove it down. Like the ones I'm using, they have this ear.
Yeah, but also they have.
But then you got to go jam it in there.
Well, sometimes you can get something that jams in. It has a point.
Well, those like the cheap ones don't come with multiple little gluey things that go. So the good ones actually have multiple sizes of the little rubber piece, And if it's too small, you can get a bigger one and jam it down. And it work or smaller. So yeah, you might want to run by Best Buy and get you. That's a gas station set right there.
Oh, I was going to go online. Well, I forgot about Best Buy.
Buy is
I'll
awesome,
have to go there.
Target has great stuff. Walmart, Best Buy. If you're looking for earbuds and stuff, I mean, you can find those. Like I said, I bought those at an Indian gas station, so I've got all kind of stuff from in there. I can tell you, it's like a little, bazaar shop. You can get anything you want. I can get a shirt. I can get cat food and get earbuds and
just anything a guy needs,
right.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Well, I think I might go to Best Buy because I could get some personal help. Some of these
they'll
stores,
get you the best. I sent my dad down there the other day trying to get a Bluetooth.
How much do the best ones cost? $20?
You might be looking 20 to 40, for good ones. You can go much higher than that. You can go to Apple and all that, but make sure you don't get wireless. You want the plug one because we don't have a wireless device. Right. Make sure you get the ones that don't have the mic on them. You just want the earbuds that plug in just like you got, but better quality. Well, those are not the best.
You can't hide behind a bad hair day, though. Like with these,
I do every day.
You can hide. Well, no, you can hide behind a bad hair day. Put these things on. You may start off looking all glammed up, but then you put these things on and you're a mess. But and it covers everything up. But anyway, it's interesting. I just want something that sounds a little better.
Those don't sound great.
I like a high bass and a high temp. What do you call up top?
These are really good that I use. These came with my phone, my Samsung.
Yeah.
And so they're of high quality. They're a little older, but the things that come with your phone, those are much better quality than. So if you have some at the house,
have some.
All you need is that little converter plug that I used over there, and it'll work great.
Yeah. By the way, I'm sorry about this phone making a racket on me. As I was coming into work, there was this ringing. Not a ringing. It was some sort of a tone. I thought it was odd. And when I got to work, when I looked to see what it was some Bitcoin stuff got a hold of me, and it's like hundreds of stuff, and I don't know how to shut it out. It came through near my GroupMe, and when I logged out of GroupMe, it says, well, you got to come back with what's your new password? Well, I don't know what my old password was. Anyway, so it's a mess, but I don't know how to get rid of Bitcoin. I just sent a message, stop it, yeah, sure, we're going to pay attention to you. Okay, well, listen, this is a sad story. And I didn't know that DoorDash did more than food, but apparently they do. And now, here's this. A DoorDash employee was arrested after allegedly trying to steal the order of a retired deputy left paralyzed in the line of duty. On Monday afternoon, Madison County Sheriff's Department got a call from the retired sheriff, Deputy Brad Sullivan, regarding to an order he made at Academy Sports. He explained to officers that he placed his order for his son, and it showed that the order had been picked up by a DoorDasher named Dennis K. The deputy said that he contacted the store, and the manager told him Dennis K. picked up the order and left the store with it. Later on, though, the order was shown as canceled, but Sullivan did not cancel the order. So when Deputy Sullivan contacted the DoorDasher, later identified as Terrell Hampton, not Dennis K., Terrell Hampton. Hampton told Deputy Sullivan that he didn't have his order and refused to bring it to him. Well, if he didn't have it, how can he not bring it to him? Through the cooperation of Academy Sports and some investigative tools that the Madison County PD has, Madison Sheriff's have, determined that Hampton had, in fact, exited the store with deputies' merchandise and that his vehicle was identified. And a little while later on, the officers located and stopped the vehicle driven by Hampton. Listen to this. So during the stop, have you heard this story? Have you not heard this story? The officers found a firearm, marijuana, and the merchandise belonging to Deputy Sullivan. The merchandise consisted of a couple pairs of shoes, some shirts, and some shorts. The officers arrested Hampton for petty larceny, improper equipment, and possession of marijuana, while in possession of a firearm, and he got taken off to the Madison County Jail. So in 2019, there was this terrible incident that happened in Madison County. There was a suspect on the loose, I guess it was, and Deputy Sullivan was involved in the pursuit of this guy. It was kind of out in the boonies, someplace out in Madison County. And he found the suspect, and they started shooting, and Deputy Sullivan was shot twice in the head and was left paralyzed on his left side. And what an awful thing to happen, and for some fool like this to come along. So anyway, I don't guess he got his merchandise, but sure enough, the bad guy is where he needs to be. So there. Terrell Hampton is his name. Terrell, Terrell Hampton of Jackson. So those are my stories for the day. I mean, that was pretty awful stuff. And I feel, did somebody come up with 100? What 100 is today?
Let's take a look and see.
Let's see. Do we have anybody who's...
I don't see an answer there.
Well, they got some other stuff, but not related to that. Well, it ought to relate to that.
Let's roll with the answer.
So you think?
Yeah.
100 days of of Donald Trump. And boy, oh boy, the oppos.
Only 100 days. You haven't done anything about the economy. You haven't done anything about the oil.
Please, just shut up.
I can say my gas bill is a little lower when I stop at the pump. And I'll buy some eggs. It's a little lower, and
yeah, that's it. It's happening, but it's happening at a slower pace. Well, things just don't happen just like that. Although it feels like our lives are so fast. It's like, wait a minute. It's going to be May in a couple of days. Wait. What happened? Easter came upon us. Whoa, what was that? That happened so fast. But then a lot of that was the weather related. But it's happening very fast. There are several countries that are pretty close to coming to some tariff agreements, I've heard today. One of them is India. And we have a lot of trade with India. And the thought is when India caves, then some other people will too. Well, it's only fair to balance it out. Why should we be, soaked for stuff? Just because we're big and we have money? No, we don't. We don't have that much money. You can't soak us forever because we do run out of money. And I'm much as I understand about it, I'm glad that it's going to happen. And really, once people come to their senses and they realize, well, this is pretty stupid stuff, why don't we just lower our stuff to such a point that it won't make a big difference to the people and won't make a difference in somebody's economy. We'll get a little bit, and everybody will get a little bit, but don't be so greedy as to take a whole bunch of stuff. And that's just the way I talked to somebody who was in the money business over the weekend, and the consensus is that it'll be a little bit rocky, and certainly we are pretty rocky when it comes to the stock market. If you depend on that a lot, it'll be rocky for a few months, maybe until like about September, and then things will level out. You got to get through the summer, get through all this kind of stuff, and it will level out.
Well, if you think about oil's a good example. It takes about 60 to 90 days to get it to where you can purchase it from where you dug it out of the ground, and a lot of things are that way. Any change today is usually going to be met 2-3 months later. That's just how things work. So,
well, a couple of years ago, I had a guy he was a geologist and involved in the drilling business. And you don't just put a probe down and go, oh, there it is. First of all, leases. When you buy a lease, you don't necessarily know that there's anything there. You have to do probes and find out if there's something there. First of all,
you got a lot better at that. Yeah.
Then you got to go. You got to go way down so much, and you got to go through all kinds of layers of evolution and history of the earth and everything. It's a great history of the earth lesson. But then you got to get down in there, and then you got to find it. Okay, then you find it, and then you start pumping it up, and you got to make sure that it doesn't just go spurting all over the place. You got to have whatever you have to have in place to corral the stuff. Then you get it, and then, and by the way, there's all kinds of environmental things that go on during this time too, when you're digging way down into the earth. But then when you get it, you can't just send it off down some pipeline someplace. You have to clean it. It has to be clean. Did you know that? Probably you did. It has to go through a process there before you take it away. Then they take it away to to the processing places, and there aren't a lot of those.
Got to get it refined.
Yeah, and then not a lot of refineries anymore. Well, there never were.
They'll have to shut them down occasionally for maintenance and that stuff, and that always creates.
We don't seem to build new refineries. I don't know why, but we don't
build new power plants either.
Well, that's
often,
for sure.
So,
and that's for sure. like if a whole block of us had electric vehicles and we plugged them in during the summertime, you'd blow up.
Have a blackout.
Well, absolutely, the whole country would have a blackout. But
and we have an
aging
grid. We have an aging grid as well.
Yep.
That worries me a little bit more than most anybody.
Makes you think about EMP. Is that it?
Well, I just worry about the strain as we continue to pump
EMP.
more. Yeah, the electromagnetic pulse. But
yes.
I mean, to me, I think that's the worry I have about going into a much more automated society is the great demand on energy usage. And are we going to build enough energy to keep up with the demand these machines and AI? Or are we going to be paying higher prices? And then one day they go, "Oops, we didn't build enough stuff." So let's. I mean, you want to not have that problem. So
Absolutely.
I'm not convinced we know that yet, and are going to figure that out in time for you and I not to be doing the same like ACA did with healthcare. Oh, it's going to go down because this is going to be so much better, and then your bill a month later is 400% higher. So I hope we don't have that problem because we are definitely not engaging in the electrical components of building very often.
Well, years ago there was talk about another Grand Gulf. But
the mini nukes are good
that's
ones.
Never happened.
The little micronuclear plants, much safer, very easy to do.
Well, this down
They
here,
ever want to build another big one.
they want to build another big one because, hey, look, we're in the middle of where we are, supposedly a very high growth area of the country, and you send that stuff out from a lot of places, but nothing has ever happened with that. Well, we don't need it. Yeah, that's a narrow point of view.
Depends on how much you want to be spending on your electrical bill if you need it or not.
I still think, by the way, my thing about the bow and arrow with regard to the economy, the arrow's going to come off here, and you got to pull it back. And then you release it, pow, and then it goes. And that's what I think is going to happen.
Take some time to travel.
Just from talking to people and listening to people, that's what I think will happen. I think Trump's going to come through. You just can't expect everything in a minute, unfortunately. But that's the way that goes. All right, everybody, that was fun today. That went by pretty fast, I must say. Well, all these hours go by pretty fast, don't they? But enjoyed it a whole lot. And let's see, Friday we've got Darden North and some hot weather in between. See you then.